We like to imagine ourselves in control of our fate, consciously planning the course of our lives as best as we can. But we are largely unaware of how deeply our emotions dominate us. They make us veer towards ideas that soothe our ego. They make us look for evidence that confirms what we already want to believe. They make us see what we want to see, depending on our mood. And this disconnect from reality is the source of the bad decisions and the negative patterns that haunt our life. Rationality is the ability to counteract these emotional effects, to think instead of react, to open our mind to what is really happening, as opposed to what you're feeling. It does not come naturally. It is a power that we must cultivate. But in doing so, we realize our greatest potential. When you analyze your feelings, you realize that most of the times they are not justified, and they lose their significance under scrutiny. It is better to base all of your decisions on one thing, one greater goal, around which all of your rationality may revolve. This will help you avoid the ego trap that trains people's rational way of thinking. Look for those emotions that are continually infecting your ideas and decisions. Learn to question yourself. Why this anger or resentment? Where does this incessant need for attention came from? Under such scrutiny, your emotions will lose their hold on you. You will begin to think for yourself, instead of reacting to what others give you. Like an athlete continually getting stronger, through training your mind will become more flexible and resilient. Clear and calm, you will see answers and creative solutions that no one else can envision. The first step towards becoming rational is to understand our fundamental irrationality. The following steps will help you begin on the path towards being a more rational person. Emotions are continually affecting our thought processes and decisions, below the level of our awareness. And the most common emotion of them all is the desire for pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Our thoughts almost inevitably revolve around this desire. We simply recoil from entertaining ideas that are unpleasant or painful to us. We imagine we are looking for the truth or being realistic, when in fact we are holding on to ideas that bring a release from the tension and soothe our egos, making us feel superior. This pleasure principle in thinking is the main source of all our mental biases. It is best to search and see how these biases continually operate inside you, as well as learn how to identify such irrationality in others. To hold an idea and to convince ourselves that we arrived at it rationally, we go in search of evidence to support our view. What could be more objective or scientific? But because of the pleasure principle and its unconscious influence, we manage to find the evidence that confirms what we already want to believe. We hold on to an idea that is secretly pleasing to us, but deep inside we might have some doubts as to its truth. And so we go an extra mile to convince ourselves to fully believe in it, and to loudly contradict anyone who challenges us. How can our idea not be true if it brings out in us such energy to defend it? That is perhaps what we tell ourselves. This is most clearly revealed in our relationship leaders. If they express an opinion with heated words and gestures and a deep well of conviction, it must mean that they have examined the idea carefully to express it with such certainty. Those, on the other hand, whose tone is more hesitant, reveal weakness and self-doubt. We assume that they are lying or they are unaware, but that may not be true. We see people not as they are, but as they appear to us, and these appearances are usually misleading. First, people have trained themselves in social situations to present the front that is appropriate and that will be judged positively. We are social animals by nature. The feeling of isolation, of difference from the group, is depressing and terrifying. We experience tremendous relief when we find others who think the same as we do. In fact, we are motivated to take up ideas and opinions because they bring us this relief. We are unaware of this pull, and so imagine we have come to certain ideas completely on our own. But in reality, those ideas are someone else's ideas. Mistakes and failures elicit the need to explain. We want to learn the lesson and not repeat the experience, but in truth, we do not like to look too closely at what we did. Our introspection is limited. our natural response is to blame others. Circumstances are a momentary lapse of judgment. The reason for this bias is that it is often too painful to look at your own mistakes. It calls into question our feelings of superiority. It pokes at our ego. I'm different. I'm more rational than others, more ethical as well. We wouldn't say these statements to people in conversations. It sounds arrogant. But in numerous opinion polls and studies, when people were asked to compare themselves with others, they would generally express a variation of this. It is the equivalent of an optical illusion. We cannot seem to see the faults of our own, only those of others. Low-grade emotions continually affect our thinking, and they originate from our own impulses. For instance, the desire for pleasing and comforting thoughts. High-grade emotion, however, comes at certain moments, which is an explosive fit and is generally sparked by something external. For example, a person who gets under our skin or particular circumstances. The level of arousal is higher and our attention is captured completely. The more we think about the emotion, the stronger it gets, which makes us focus on it even more. Our minds tunnel into the emotion and everything reminds us of our anger or excitement. As a result, we become reactive. Because we are unable to bear the tension this brings, high-grade emotion usually culminates in some rash action with disastrous consequences. It is best to be aware of these factors so that you can stop the mind from tunneling and prevent the releasing action that you will come to regret later. You should always be aware of high-grade irrationality in others. Either get out of their way or help bring them back to reality. Be aware of the following factors. In early childhood, we were at our most sensitive and vulnerable. Our relationship to our parents had a much greater impact on us. The further back we go in time, these vulnerabilities and wounds remain buried deep within our minds. Sometimes we try to repress the memory of these influences, especially if they happen to be negative. Later in life, a person or event will trigger a memory of this positive or negative experience, and with it a release of powerful chemicals or hormones associated in the memory. For example, a young man who had a distant narcissistic mother as a child had experienced her coldness as abandonment. And to be abandoned must mean he was somehow unworthy of her love. This pattern can repeat itself for the rest of his life, especially in his romantic encounters without him being aware of it. Sudden success or winnings can be very dangerous. When gains come quickly, we turn aside the basic wisdom that for success to really last, it must come through hard work. We do not take into account the role that luck often plays in such sudden gains. We try again and again to recapture that high from winning that money or attention. We acquire feelings of grandiosity, unexpected loss, or a string of losses, equally creating irrational reaction. We imagine that we are cursed with bad luck and that this will go on indefinitely. We become fearful and hesitant, which will often lead to more mistakes or failures. The people around you generally appear sane and in control of their lives, but put any of them in stressful circumstances with the pressure rising and you will see a different reality. The cool mask of self-control comes off, they certainly lash out in anger, reveal a paranoid streak and become hypersensitive. Often petty under stress or any threat, the most primitive parts of the brain are aroused and engaged, overwhelming people's reasoning powers. Stress or tension can reveal flaws in people that they have carefully concealed from the view. It is often wise to observe people in such moments, precisely as a way to judge their true character. There are people in the world who, by their nature, tend to trigger powerful emotions in almost everyone they encounter. These emotions range from the extremes of love, hatred, confidence, and mistrust. Some examples in history would include King David in the Bible, Julius Caesar in ancient Rome, George Stanton during the French Revolution, and Bill Clinton. These types have a degree of charisma. They have the ability to eloquently express the emotions they are feeling, which inevitably stirs parallel emotions in other people. but some of them can also be quite narcissistic. They project their internal drama and troubles outward, catching other people up in the turmoil they create. This leads to profound feelings of action in some and repulsion in others. Also, they try to cast a larger-than-life image, but in fact they are all too human, full of the same insecurities and weaknesses that we all possess. Try to recognize these very human traits and destroy the myth. When we are in a group of large enough size, we become emotionally vulnerable. Notice yourself and others at a sporting event, a concert, or a religious or political gathering, or somewhere like that. It is impossible not to feel yourself caught up in the collective emotions. Your heart beats faster, tears of joy or sadness come more readily. Mainly, two factors should give us hope to bring out our rational self. First is the existence of rational people throughout history and in every culture. People like Barry Coles, Leonardo da Vinci, Abraham Lincoln, Warren Buffett, and so on. These people, with the progress and accomplishments to the aid of their rationality, are a perfect source of inspiration. The second factor is that we all have at some point in our lives experienced greater moments of rationality. We had a project to get done, perhaps with a deadline, and to get results we had to be exceptionally practical. The following strategies will help you bring out the rational self. Know yourself thoroughly. The emotional self thrives on ignorance. The moment you are aware of how it operates and dominates you is the moment it loses its hold on you and can be tamed. Examine your emotions to their roots. Figure out what is the underlying root of your emotion, such as extreme anger. Being aware of the root will enable you to figure a way out. Increase your reaction time. Give yourself time to step back and think rationally before figuring out the perfect response to something. Accept people as facts. Everyone is different. You cannot change people. Let go of that desire and get to know what makes them tick. Find the optimal balance of thinking and emotion. Emotions are the horse and your thinking is the rider riding the horse. Find the balance and learn to control the horse. Love the rational. Rationality is not painful. In fact, it brings control, joy, and satisfaction in life. I would like to end this by saying that as long as there are humans, the irrational will find its voices and means of spreading. Rationality is something to be acquired by individuals, not by mass movements or technological progress. Feeling superior and beyond it is a sure sign that the irrational is at work.